Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So last class, I think I have completed the economic operation in your class. So today I shall start the voltage control or reactive power compensation. So actually in power transmission system, voltage drop is a major issue, because if voltage drop is there, then receiving end voltage will be lower. And generally loads in power system are mostly induction type motor type load, so constant power loads. So if voltage drops at the load bus then or load point, then current will rise. So it will, as a consequence, will increase the current in the transmission line. So there will be more loss, and this process will be continued for further voltage drop, further current rise in that way if it is not controlled. So voltage control is very much required. And ideally, if we can maintain same voltage from no load to full load condition, that means zero voltage regulation at receiving end, that will be the ideal condition. But it is not possible as the power transmission line has a reactance or resistance. So it is not possible. But we should try to maintain the voltage within the 5% tolerance. More voltage problem may come due to capacitive effect like Ferranti effect, and another voltage problem may come due to the overloading of the system, over inductive current power loading in the system, that you know from your power system planning and design classes. And for any transmission line, long transmission line also, we can represent approximately by its series reactance only. If we proceed with the pi equivalent model of long transmission line, then if we assume that R is much smaller than X, that is the thing in case of long transmission line, then we can get that this power transmission line can be represented only by a reactor. 1 minute, where is the recording? My recording option is not coming. One minute, I'm not getting recording option today. Anyway, leave it then. Leave it. So now in a power system, say, so we are concerned about actually at the receiving end power, because we have to, it is required to cater the receiving end load. So receiving end load, if it is PD plus JQD, obviously it is inductive load since the imaginary part is positive. So if we want to cater this load, ideally we should need this exact amount of load from the transmission line end at the receiving end. You should come in time in the class. Then, but here I have written these two powers are not same. That means the power demand at receiving end is PD plus JQD, and power transmitted by transmission line is PR plus JQR. I have purposefully done that one. So ideally what will happen, PR plus JQR should be equal to PD plus JQD. Anyway, if we see from the transmission line side, because transmission line will transmit this power PR plus JQR, then VI conjugate, that means VRIR conjugate must be equal to PR plus JQR. Now, since we are interested to find out current, why? Because we want to find out an expression of voltage in terms of voltage drop in terms of power at receiving end. So if we take conjugate on both sides, then we can get an expression of current. Then what will be the voltage drop in this line? I into Jx, receiving end current and sending end current will be same, because we are here, we have assumed that receiving the transmission line resistance is much lesser than its reactance and shunt conductances are negligible. So that's why it is represented by by its reactance only. So in that case, what will be the voltage drop? VR equal to Jx into IR. So it will have some real part and imaginary part. You see, the real part is dependent on QR and X. Okay. And where an imaginary part is dependent on R and PR. So we can write real part as del V dash, that is the real part of the voltage drop in the transmission line as del V dash, and the imaginary part is del V double dash. Then it is simply, if we draw the phasor diagram, then it will be like this. If it is VR, then Vs should be delta angle leading, and difference between VR and Vs is the del V, which has one real part and one imaginary part. But generally in an interconnected power transmission system, the angle between VR and Vs is kept very low, so that we can get the considerable amount of stability limit in case of fault or due to load enhancements and anything. So due to stability reason, delta is kept very low, near to 20 to 30 degree in case of interconnected power transmission. Interconnected means say 200 buses are connected by 180 lines in that case, in such type of cases, like our practical power systems. So if delta is very small, then obviously Vs will be very near to VR. So in this case, maybe like this. Here I have drawn delta higher value to make you understand. Then this will be delta in that case if delta is small. Then which component among this del V dash and del V double dash will be dominating to make this del V voltage difference? Can you tell me?
V double dash.
Huh?
Del V double dash.
How? If delta is very small, then del V is due to this, right? Then which component will be dominating?
Active power component.
Active power component, not the real, because this delta is small. So vertical deviation is small, right? So this del V dash will be negligible as compared to this. So if we want to write this approximate expression of del V, then if we want to neglect any one of these, so we want to get one component, then we have to neglect this one, not this one, because del V dash will be more than del V double dash, since delta is small. So in that case, if we make its approximation, then we can write del V dash equal to XQR by VR. Or in short, so actually what is happening, this del V is caused due to del V dash and del V double dash. Here I have drawn del V double dash higher, otherwise I cannot show this considerable delta. But if delta is small, delta for the same value of Vs, obviously del V dash will be more than del V double dash. Anyway, now you see, yes?
Some students are trying to join from a long time. So
not long time. After 1:08, I have started. They have not come in time. They should come in time. So actually, if we do not consider even the approximation, then delta V will be caused by due to its two components. One is del V dash, another is del V double dash. Now del V dash is due to change in Q, right? And del V double dash will be in change in P. Why I am telling change, not this Q and PR? So this is a certain amount of del V for a particular value of P and Q, right? Now, if this del V is changing, if the voltage drop is changing or the receiving end voltage is changing, that means there is a deviation of QR from this value and PR from this value. That's why I'm telling change in PR or QR. Anyway, so if there is no change in P or QR, then there will be a definite specified amount of a definite amount of del V. But this del V here, PR and Q are not fixed for a power transmission system. It will vary with the voltage drop, with the load demand in the system. So obviously voltage drop will deviate. Now, say if we want to now based on which this voltage drop will deviate. Obviously, this voltage drop will be depend on the value of QR and value of PR. So, if the QR is increased, then deviation in voltage drop will be more as compared to the deviation in PR. Have you understood this? If you do not understand, then ask me. So that's why we can say that this voltage deviation or voltage drop in a power transmission line is mainly due to the change in Q or status of Q of the system. It obviously change with the change in P, but the deviation is lesser as compared to the change in Q. That's why it is called the change in voltage magnitude at any bus. Why voltage magnitude? We are talking about voltage drop because voltage magnitude available at any bus will be voltage available at source minus voltage deviation. So voltage magnitude at any bus is strongly coupled with Q. So if the Q is deviating or fluctuating, then voltage fluctuation will be more. And if the P is fluctuating, then obviously voltage fluctuation will be there, but that will be less as compared to same variation in Q. So now if we want to maintain same voltage drop, say this is say 10 volt is voltage drop for say this is 50 MVAR Q and 100 megawatt P, right? Now the voltage as power has changed to 200 P and 100 Q. Then obviously this del V will not be 10. It will be somewhat else. Now if I want to maintain this 10 volt and if we can control Q and P, which one we should control? We should control Q because Q is strongly coupled with voltage deviation. That is one point. At the same time, we cannot compensate anything locally, or we cannot compensate P locally. If we want to reduce P, then we have to get the more generation. So we have to increase the generation. But here I am talking that we shall not increase generation, but locally we shall manage. So if we locally we want to manage, we want to keep the voltage drop even at 10 volt, but at the increment on the reactive power 100 volt, 100 kVAR and the active power 200 megawatt, then what we can do? So that thing we can do by compensation. Compensation means we are nullifying something. So that compensation we can only do using the reactive power. You know, on inductive current, if there be any inductive current, if this is the voltage, any inductive current can be nullified only by a capacitive current. On a capacitive current can be nullified using an inductive current. But a resistive current you cannot nullify. You can only reduce it if you can supply a generation. I hope you can understand. So this is the concept. So generation is there. Generation, that's why power supply system we have learned, and generation should be there. Otherwise, who will supply that active power? But reactive power issues are coming since the loads are inductive. At the same time, transmission line has its own inductance and capacitance due to its behavior or due to its configuration. So we cannot avoid that. So reactive power actually developed in power transmission system. It is not the purpose of a power system to supply reactive power. On the contrary, nobody will pay for the reactive power. So reactive power is a side effect. So we have to reduce that. So that's why there is a concept of compensation. So now say this is PD plus JQD. Now you see, if we want to maintain same voltage drop, so actually if we want to maintain same voltage drop, then we should maintain this Q as 100. Instead of 100, you have to maintain Q as P 50. Then what we can do here? We can add minus 50 capacitive var. Then effectively it will be plus 50 inductive var. So in that way we can compensate. So here actually, say this Q of this receiving end side power and demand are not same. Then we can connect a compensating device. I have not written here capacitor because it may be different type. So we can connect a compensating device so that the algebraic sum of reactive power at the receiving end should be equal to the reactive power received from the transmission line side. Why it is required? To maintain same voltage drop even with the change in load at the receiving end. So if we make that power balance, Q are equal to QD plus QCOM, right? Now you see, when there is a over voltage problem, so say voltage power has been changed 50 MVAr to 100 MVAr, so voltage reactive power has increased, so del V will be more, right? So it will be one under voltage problem. Del V is more means receiving end will receive less reactive power, less voltage, so under voltage problem. So at heavy loading condition there will be under voltage problem. So heavy loading condition is due to heavy inductive loading. Now how we can reduce the heavy inductive loading? By inserting a capacitor. So in that case, Q comp will be capacity. Okay. Now here also from this equation also we can readily get this. So there was some QR, right? QR was something. But here QD is more than QR, right? So if QD is more than QR, then QR minus QD is negative. So QR minus QD is negative means capacitive. Negative Q means capacitive. That's why it is capacitive. Otherwise, from the technical explanation also, we can justify that one. That as I have given you. So heavy loading condition, there will be under voltage problem. So we can compensate it as with a capacitor. We have developed this concept to some extent in our power system planning and design classes in transmission line part. Similarly, at low loading condition, low loading means when load is low, very low, as less than surge impedance loading of the line, or maybe the no load condition that develop the Ferranti effect in the line. In that case, QD is much lesser than QR. Then what is happening? The reactive power supplied by that line is more than reactive power requirement by the load. Then obviously we have to connect some dummy load at the receiving end. That we do by inserting the reactor or inductor. So it will create when the reactive power demand is less, then it will create over voltage problem because voltage will rise because the reactive power demand is less than reactive power supplied. So here actually del QR is negative. So that's why del V will be negative. So there will be a voltage rise. So for that reason, in that case, the Q comp will be inductive, right? So it will be this one B square by XL. So inductive compensation. Now, why I have not written capacitor or inductor? Conventionally, we can do this one using the capacitor or inductor. Obviously, they should be connected in parallel with the load. And if the load is three phase, the system is three phase, then those capacitors or inductor also will be connected in three phase, in star or delta. Generally, capacitors are connected in delta. But along with the capacitor, we have some other devices also that can serve the purpose, or that can be used as a capacitor or inductor. And one more thing, say here nobody can say that this QR dot QD will be fixed for a power transmission system, because at every moment of the day or year the load is changing. So it would be better if we can get a smoothly varying capacitor or inductor. That is not possible with the capacitor bank or inductor bank. Okay. So that's why actually two more compensating device we use as the shunt compensation. They are called the synchronous condenser and the static var compensator. Now, what may be the issue? This issue is that it may create parallel resonance when you are connecting an inductor. There is transmission line has a shunt capacitor, so it may create the resonance condition. And say, if you keep connect an inductor during overloading condition, then obviously it will create unnecessary under voltage problem. Vice versa thing will happen for the capacitive. If you keep the capacitive compensation even at the no load condition, okay, in that case also that thing will happen. Then in that case over voltage problem will be more. Now, synchronous condenser, what is that? Synchronous condenser is actually a synchronous motor at no load. Then why the name is condenser? Actually, capacitor is known as condenser. So from their name, this name has come by, I think. So synchronous condenser is actually a synchronous motor. but it is used only for the compensation purpose, not for the motor purpose. When should we use the motors? To run a drive or to move something, so that there will be a load on the shaft of the motor. But here, for synchronous condenser, synchronous motor will be at no load. That means there will be no mechanical loading on its shaft. So for that reason, but no, somebody can put a mechanical load in a synchronous condenser also, but that should not be allowed. That there will be no mechanical power. That means there should not be no active power drawn by the motor. Actually, if there be any mechanical loading, then only the induction motor, synchronous motor will draw the active power. Otherwise, it will not draw. So some active power will be required. See, I shall not allow anybody else. So if there be any some loss, some power, active power still will be required to compensate its losses. Now here I have assumed that it is lossless in that way. Now you see, so synchronous motor at no load. So there is a, for this synchronous motor, when it is used as a synchronous condenser, in that case, it has no projected shaft. This question repeatedly asked in the Grand Viva as well as in interviews. How will you identify, segregate one induction synchronous motor used as a drive, will be used as a drive, and one synchronous motor will be used as a synchronous condenser? By visual inspection, you can say, because for the synchronous condenser, it will have no projected shaft. There will be no provision to provide mechanical loading to this motor. So the motor with no shaft, no projected shaft obviously will be there, no project, you cannot access that shaft. No projected shaft, that is the synchronous condenser. When it has projected shaft, then it means it is a synchronous motor. 1 minute. Now, if we try to find out current through the current drawing by the induction synchronous motor, obviously the synchronous motor will draw the current, is not it? Because it is a machine. So what will be the current drawn by the synchronous motor? SC means synchronous condenser. So terminal voltage minus induced EMF by its reactance. So this will be the current. This is the representation of synchronous motor, voltage behind the reactance. So at no load P equal to 0. Okay, so there is when there is a active power transfer, then there will be voltage angle difference between the two terminal voltages. Since there is no active power transfer, so VR and E will be in same phase. So from there we can calculate the reactive power. It will be I into V conjugate, an imaginary part of that. So since V conjugate we have taken, so positive imaginary part will give you the capacitive VAR, right? So this is the capacitive VAR. If it is positive, that means capacitive. Now you see, if E is more than VR, then this QSC will be positive. E is more than VR, that means induced EMF is more than terminal voltage. That means it is at overexcited condition. So when the synchronous motor will be at overexcited condition, then it will draw a capacitive VAR. That means it will act as a capacitor. On the contrary, when it will be at underexcited condition, when E is less than VR, then the QSC will be negative, that means inductive. So it will draw an inductive current, so it will act as an inductor. So just by controlling the excitation, the synchronous motor can be used as a capacitor as well as inductor. And if this capacitor or inductance variation may be smooth, because you can control the we are controlling the excitation. Only one disadvantage is that since it is a machine, so there will be an wear and tear. So the maintenance of this machine is higher. Otherwise, it is a very good compensator. Okay, whatever I have talked, that is written here. Next is static VAR compensator. Static VAR compensator, you may assume, as it has overcome the problem of synchronous condenser. So we have made one device where capacitive current or inductive current can be controlled by thyristor valves. Here it is written static bar compensator employing thyristor switch capacitor and thyristor control reactor. Thyristor switch capacitor means whether capacitor will be in the circuit or not, that will be decided by thyristor valves. And thyristor control reactor means how much current will flow. Say this is the total sinusoidal curve. If we make this much of delay angle using thyristor, then this much of current will be available. So depending on gate control, how much current will be flowing through the inductor, that can be controlled. So that is the thyristor control reactor. So actually we are controlling the current through the inductor. Now thyristor control capacitor is also there. So we can control the capacitive current also. And how it will be controlled depending on what is the voltage available and what is the desirable voltage at this bus. So here voltage available, say V reference is the desirable voltage and voltage available is V. Then this V reference will be sensed by this control system. There is two control system, and this will calculate the deviation between V and V reference. If calculating that, it will decide the firing angle alpha and control the capacitive current or inductive current. PT is for the voltage conversion, because static bar compensator is low power device as compared to the power transmission system, and it is connected to the coupling capacitor to the transmission line bus. Now if we make an equivalent of this, so actually there is a controllable capacitor and controllable inductor in parallel. So actually what you can do, you can use this IC and IL, you can control. So by controlling these two, you can make overall current either capacitive or inductive. So in that way, we may control the power through the voltage at the transmission line. Okay. So there are three types of shunt compensation. One is conventional inductor or capacitor. Secondly is the synchronous condenser. Third is the SVC. SVC is also called the flexible one-phase device, flexible AC transmission system, one-phase device. Why? Because here using power electronics control, we are making the AC transmission system flexible. That's why it is a primitive fax controller. Now let us concentrate on power flow through a transmission line. Up to this, before this, we are concentrating on the voltage drop in a power transmission line. Now, if we think about power flow through a transmission line, then if we find out current expression of current Vs minus VR by Jx, then the power is Vi conjugate. So from there we can get the expression of power. Now if you see the real part of the real power, then real power you see dependent on the X is constant, you may say. So for a particular value of voltage at sending end and receiving end, the power supplied to the receiving end will vary with delta. You may have learned this one in your other part class, in the other part of power system performance anyway. So if maximum delta is possible 90 degree. So with that we can get the maximum value. So PR is actually VR Vs by X. Let me see whether it is written or not. It is written, no problem, it is written. So PR is VR Vs by X sine delta, right? So when delta is maximum 90 degree, then P is maximum VR Vs by X, right? So P max is VR Vs by X. This will be the maximum possible power at receiving end. Now we can even maximize this one if we can reduce X, right? If we reduce X, then we can do that one. But how we can reduce X? Because X is constant. X is the property of transmission line. We can reduce X effectively by inserting a capacitor. So if we insert a capacitor here, so we are not reducing X, but effectively the effective reactance of the transmission line will be reduced. So by using that type of compensation, we can increase the level of power flow through a transmission line, right? But there is a limit. We are increasing active power flow. So there is a current limit of current flow, thermal limit of a line. If you are increasing current, then I square R loss will be there. So it may happen if you increase it is ideally to infinity, then there will be the thermal loss of thermal limit. It will be beyond thermal limit of the conductor, so it will melt. So it is not possible. At the same time, we are inserting a capacitor in series with the reactor in the transmission line. That's why it is called series compensation. What is the purpose? Main purpose is to increase the maximum active power transfer to the transmission line. So it is only possible if we insert an inductor. It is never possible with the insertion of an inductor. So series inductive compensation is never possible. It is not feasible. It is not required for power transmission. It will reduce the power transfer. And main purpose of power transmission line is to transfer power. So the series inductive compensation is never adopted. Always series capacitive compensation, right? So what will be the effective compensation? X minus X com. So ideally, here I am assuming that capacitor, the reactance supplied by the series compensative capacitor is minus Jx com. Now ideally this X com must be equal to X, maybe equal to X. Then what will happen? If X com equal to X, then there will be series resonance. If it is series resonance, then actually current will be huge, infinite in this case, and all the power will be absorbed in the transmission line in terms of loss. There will be no power will be transferred at the load. So that is not preferable. That's why always there is a limit in series compensation. In shunt compensation, there is no such limit. In series compensation, we generally do not go beyond 30%, maximum 40%, 30 to 40% maximum compensation we do. That's why X comp is written as K into X. K may be 0.4, 0.2, 0.3 like that. K is called degree of compensation. So maximum 30 to 40 degree, generally in between 20 to 30 degree. So actually the PR in that case will be VR Vs by X effective sin delta, and this will be the expression of reactive power. Now you see the X effective will also improve the reactive power, is not it? So there will be this voltage deviation will also be improved using this series compensation. But the effect will be more in the power transfer as compared to the voltage drop. So power transfer and voltage drop are interrelated thing. So if you increase one, then another will be increased, but not at that extent. So actually the series compensation, the purpose of series compensation to improve the power transfer capability of the line, but it will also help in the voltage improvement. Same thing for the series shunt compensation. Shunt compensation is done only to improve the voltage profile. But if when we improve the voltage profile, then this VR is improving, then obviously the power transfer to the transmission line will also increase, right? So both of these has effect to one to another. So what are the problem associated with series compensation? One is series resonance that I have already discussed. Another is mal-operation of distance relay. What is that? Actually, relay is always there in any power system to observe whether the system is healthy or not. And if it is not healthy, then it will ask the circuit breaker to switch off that circuit. So actually what is done by the distance relay actually observe the reactance of the line or impedance of the line. So if there is no fault, then impedance of the line will be higher as compared to the faulted condition, because faulted condition means actually zero impedance path. So actually effective impedance of the transmission line will be reduced, right? So when the impedance is below a certain value, then distance relay will think that it is a fault. But here the impedance of the line will be reduced, but it is not due to fault, but we are doing this purposefully to increasing the power transfer capability. So there is a chance of mal-operation of distance relay which is not set properly after compensation. So if we adopt series compensation, then distance relay should be set properly. because it's say one line is without distance relay, without series compensation, and distance relay is there, and now we are connecting a series compensation, then distance relay will observe that there is a decrement in impedance. So it will assess it as a fault and instruct the circuit breaker to break the circuit. So it will be a hamper in the power supply. This is not desirable. So in that case, the distance relay should be set properly, otherwise it will maloperate. So that is the thing. So series compensation will also be fruitful for voltage profile improvement. Why I have discussed. Now next is voltage control may be done using the on-load tap changing transformer also. OLTC means on-load tap changing transformer. In normal transformer, there is only trans ratio. So primary to secondary, say 11 kV to 33 kV like that. But in case of OLTC, there are several taps, 95% to 105%, 105% on the secondary high voltage side. Why this? See 11 kV to 33 kV. So if it has only trans ratio, so for 11 kV, or you can get only 33 kV, right? Now, if there be any 10 kV on the then say if there be 10 kV available on transformer primary, then you will get correspondingly less than 33 kV and in the secondary. But in case of OLTC, changing this tap, you can increase the effective trans ratio of the transformer. So what will happen? Even at 10 kV, you can get the 33 kV. So why 33 kV is required? If we can maintain same sending end voltage, then voltage drop will be lower. Then we can improve the voltage profile and the power transmission will be healthy. So this is the concept of OLTC, and always the taps will be on the high voltage side, because this tap changing will be during load. So you are disconnecting a current at a circuit which is carrying current and connecting to a new point. So it will create huge arc. So for that reason, or spark. So for that reason, to minimize that, because for transformer, HT side will have lower current as compared to LT side. So it is provided at the LT side, and obviously it is not, the current is not opened when during tap changing. It is shifted through a short circuited path. Then that short circuited path is made open. In that way, it is done. I hope you have understood what is the purpose of OLTC. So OLTC is also one voltage control device, but it is actually improving the voltage or voltage drop in a transmission line, or it is keeping the voltage drop in a transmission line constant even when the sending end voltage is reducing. As I have given the example, say for 10 kV, 11 kV, you are getting 33 kV. So you will get a voltage drop in the transmission line. Now voltage at the receiving end has been reduced to 10 kV. Then what will happen? 33 kV will not available. But by any means, if we can maintain the 33 kV, then we can get the same voltage drop in the line. So that is the purpose. Now you see on no load condition. So at the no load condition, the tap position should be at 100%. So there is no tapping actually. So actually it is written as 1:NSTS. So NS is the normal trans ratio. Then it is multiplied by tap ratio. So it is whether it is 50% or 30% or it is actually in ratio. So it should be multiplied. So at no load condition, there is no question of tap. Tap is at 100%. So 100%, so it is Vs by 1. Primary side is considered as 1. Actually not 1. It is converted totally on the secondary side. So Vs by 1 by V1 by Ns. Or V1 we can write equal to Ns Vs. Now here Ns is constant, Vs is also constant, because we are assuming for a constant load, we are constant power, constant voltage at sending end, we are supplying the power. So Ns Vs is constant, we are assuming that as a single variable E, right? Now this V1 or Ns Vs is the no load voltage, right? When this Vs will be changed from 11 kV to 10 kV, then obviously this V1 will be changed. It will be no longer E, something else. Then using this Ts here, we shall made it equal to E. How I am going to that derivation later. Similarly, at receiving end, we are assuming that steps and trans are on the primary side or in the HT side. So transmission line side voltage is V2 by NR, and load side voltage is VR by 1. From there, we are getting V2 equal to NR VR. Both are E. That means we are assuming that at no load condition, there is no voltage drop in the line. Obviously, that should not be there. If we neglect the no load current of transformer, then obviously V1 and V2 are equal, NSVS or NRVR equal to E. Now at loaded condition, when the transmission line is loaded, right? So I current is flowing through the circuit, then obviously there will be a voltage drop, right? Then what will be the tap ratio so that we can maintain the same voltage drop? That is our issue. Now taps are chosen always in reciprocal orders to maintain it in the complementary manner. If TS is something, then TR will be reciprocal of that. Then for short line, here we are assuming that the transmission line representation are short line. So it has a resistance and inductance. So for short line, you know, it is IRR cos phi r, IRX sin phi r. That derivation we have already done in our power system planning design class, right? Now you must assume one thing, when we have done this type of voltage regulation problem in power transmission system, in power system planning design class, in that case there was no transformer, but here now there is transformer. So whatever voltage drop, that is function of I and phi, and load is the function of IR, right? So here if we want to relate the voltage drop with load, then this I or phi should be replaced by IR. Now you think one thing that this phi is created mainly due to IR, because if the transformer loss is negligible as compared to the load connected, so we may assume the angle phi angle of this line current is same to the power factor angle of the load. That's why we may write phi. We can replace phi by phi r. That is written here. When phi r is the power factor of load, it is positive for lagging load. If we assume, here we are assuming phi equal to phi r, that there is no substantial phase change in transformer from its primary to secondary, as the transformer is lossless. We are assuming. Then if we go for the MMF balance equation, so in the secondary, so in the receiving end transformer, then IR into 1 will be I into NRTR. So from there, we can replace I by IR. Why we are replacing? Actually, we need this voltage drop in terms of power, receiving end power. That's why. So if we substitute I in this equation, then we can get voltage drop in terms of current. Now, one thing, generally current at receiving end is not readily available. We have to calculate it. But power is readily available. What is the rating of load that is connected to receiving end, that is readily available. So it is better if we can replace this IR by the power. Now power is VI cos phi for active power, and receiving power is VR sin phi. So from there, IR cos phi we can represent by P by VR. Similarly, IR sin phi we may replace by QR by VR. So that can be written here, right? So now we have got one voltage drop equation in terms of PQ, voltage at receiving end, and NRTR. Now we have to relate it with the sending end quantity, right? Now you see at loaded condition at sending end, Vs by 1 equal to Vr by NSTS, because now there will be requirement of tap changing. So V1 equal to NSTS into Vs. Similarly, V2 equal to NRTR into VR. Now, what is the voltage drop at that condition? Voltage drop is voltage deviation from sending end to receiving end. So this is. So equation 8 and equation 7 obviously are same. So if we equate these two, from there we can get one relation between TS and TR. This one. Now TS and TR are reciprocal. So we can put that one. At the same time, NSVS, this is our NRVR, that are E, that we have already derived. So from there, actually I am skipping this one, you check it. We can get one expression of TS. If we get one expression of Ts, then we can get one expression of Tr also. So actually, for using OLTC, even at low voltage condition from the sending end side, using OLTC by changing tap, we can maintain same voltage. So these here, the TS will provide that what will be the tap setting under loaded condition, so that we can maintain the same voltage for this PR and QR. There is one example, say the load is this one, and the high voltage side line is operates at 132 kV at no load. Then obviously during the full load also it should be at 132 kV, but this will not be possible. With 132 kV, it will not possible to maintain the same voltage. So that's why what will be the tap ratio, so that it can be maintained the same voltage drop in the line. So here, just from there, we can extract the value, what is R, X, E, P, R, Q, R, and just put in the formula. We shall get, this is T is 1.1, and it is 19.909. So it is a theoretical question. So TS 1.1 means it will be at the 10% tap, 110% tap ratio. It will be at the 90.9% tap ratio. But 90.9 may not be available, so it may be required to adjust at 91% or 90% or 95%, depending on the taps available for that particular transformer. And here we should remember that phi is greater than 0 for lagging power factor, because if you remember that short line, the derivation of voltage regulation for short line transmission line, that was there. Now, if it is required large tap ratio, then it will not be possible by the transformer. In that case, along with transformer, local voltage control may also be required. That is that shunt compensator, synchronous condenser, it is like that. So if it is required tap position of 20% or tap position of 150%, it will not be feasible. That means voltage control in that case using OLTC will not be possible. It has a limit. And one more thing, here we are improving the voltage profile using OLTC. But OLTC, we are not improving the reactive power. Because when we are using the reactive OLTC, actually both the transformers are the inductive devices. So actually they are drawing some current. So actually we are increasing actually reactive power burden of the line. Understood? So using what is the difference between OLTC and the other compensator? Other compensator are decreasing the reactive power burden. Say when you are connecting an inductor during over voltage problem, that means when the system is capacitive, you are connecting an inductor. That means inductor actually reducing the capacitive bar. When you are connecting a capacitor during the overloading condition, when voltage is dropping, that means very huge inductive bar is there. That means that actually the capacitor is reducing that inductive bar. But here, when we are using OLTC, we are using OLTC, we are improving the voltage. That means the system is inductive. And again, we are using some inductive devices. So actually it will increase the reactive power burden of the line or system. That's why it has limitation. It cannot do very wide range as we can do using the other compensators. Its application is limited, but it is very readily available. It is very easy to tap change, so we can do it very easily. That's why it is in use. In most of the cases, it is used. Next is booster transformer. What is that? Why it is required? Say, using OLTC, at any point you are getting some voltage. I will go through the figures bit later. So some voltage V is available. Then after some length of the line, the voltage drop is again del V. But here you want volt V. How can you get? Then again you have to connect an OLTC. So instead of that, this del V, say for a length of the line, the voltage drop is del V. Now, if we want to compensate that, then we can add a voltage minus del V. That we can easily do using a transformer connecting with a proper polarity. Here again, then voltage available will be V. That then this transformer actually is supplying some voltage in series. It is directly compensating the voltage drop. So this is the concept of booster transformer. Why booster transformer is used instead of the OLTC? We could do it using OLTC also. Actually, cost of booster transformer is less as compared to OLTC. Only this is the reason. And any compensation we do with the transformers, always the reactive power burden of the line is increased. So that's why its application will be limited. We can do it for a very small variation, not for a huge variation. Now let us go to the figure. So actually here from the feeder, say there is after a long line, there is a regulating transformer. That means OLTC, right? Now after some length, then there is again some voltage drop. So there we can connect a booster transformer. So it is not that booster transformer will always be connected in the line. When the voltage drop is required, then only it will come into operation. So that's why it is connected through a relay, right? Through a relay, there is a relay. So through CT, this relay always monitor the current. If current is high, then voltage drop will be more. Then also only the voltage compensation will be required. Otherwise not. So when current is normal, then voltage compensation is not required. Then it will be open. This S switch should be open because compensation is not required. Then R switch will be closed so that this booster transformer will be bypassed. And when current B is beyond a certain value, then this NO will be relay will operate. Then its contact position will be changed. This S contact will be converted to closed, and this R contact will be open, and the booster transformer will come into operation. So this is the method of operation of the booster transformer. So this is the three-phase thing. Now, what is the advantage of this? No effect on the main transformer for any problem in the booster transformer, and lesser voltage ampere rating for the same purpose. You see one example. Say for 100 ampere current, if we want to make the compensation, if we need the 33 kV system, then the rating will be 33 kV into 100 ampere. But if the booster transformer is compensating the 100 volt, its rating is only 100 volt into 100 ampere. So obviously the volt ampere rating is low, and if the volt ampere rating is low, that means its cost will be lower. So booster transformer is very local use, right? For very small voltage drop. It is shown for 100 volt in term compared to kV, 100 volt is negligible, 0.1 kV only, right? In that way. So that's all for today. Next class, I shall start the power circle diagram. So it is better if you can sit with one compass and scale. You write your name and roll number in the chat box. Uh, 3rd February, I shall not take class. Okay, 3rd February. If everybody has written their name and roll number, then you can leave.